And good morning, church family. I hope y'all are having a good week, had a good week, because I know you're going to have a good week this week. Any week's a good week when you start the week off serving God and worshiping Him. I can't think of a better way to start a week, quite frankly. So anyway, we're glad to have you all here. Visitors, we want to make sure you're welcome. We want to invite you back tonight. Please come back tonight for our family night as we work on our family night project. The food pantry is a resource here in Franklin that is used and used a lot. And so any chance we can to help them with some of the needs that they are running out of, I think it's a good thing. So I look forward to tonight, and I hope you do too. Please come and help be a part of that. We could really use your help, as well as when our food bank date is. I believe the first Saturday in October. Where's Pat? There she is. October 3rd is when our church's turn to help with the food pantry. So mark your calendars for that as well. We'll make sure that gets in the calendar for October. Good to have you all here. If I were to ask you, how do you qualify for something? I would imagine your first response would be, well, what are you qualifying for? You don't qualify for a football team like you would qualify for a loan. The word, if you put the word qualify in the search block on Google, I would imagine you would come up with 195 million results. And probably some of them would say, you are qualified for a home improvement loan. You are qualified for a new credit card. You are qualified for a new vehicle. What kind of thing, and which kind of makes you go, what kind of things do we qualify for? Well, we qualify for jobs. We qualify for mortgages. Like I said, we qualify for credit cards. We qualify for athletic competitions. We qualify, some of us, when we go to college, we'll have to qualify to be qualified to go to college, to this certain college. Schools, benefits, loans, health plans, tax credits, insurance, participation in certain sales and auctions. We call for a qualification. Some of us have to be qualified to go to a higher level at employment, clubs, associations. The list goes on and on and on. Literally, there are thousands of areas in our lives where there is a list of characteristics, traits, conditions that we have to meet in order to qualify for something. Now, how do you qualify then to be chosen to be the personal companion and confidant of Jesus Christ, God in the flesh? How would you qualify for that? Well, there's a really simple answer to that. You don't. You don't qualify. You can't qualify. The most amazing position that anyone could have and hold is impossible to qualify for. So how did these 12, some of them stinky fishermen, a tax collector, an assassin, a few other guys from a rogues gallery, how did they get to be in a position that we find them in? Well, the answer is pretty simple too. They got that position because Jesus chose them. All this year we've been looking at these men whom Jesus have chosen to be his closest, to be closest to him, to be the ones in the most personal way, to learn from him, to be his helpers, to help him teach the world about the gospel and the kingdom of God, and to be the ambassadors of God's world. And so far, if you've been following along this year, we have seen that while there are a lot of things that were wrong about them and that could disqualify them, Jesus chose them anyway. Is my mic on? Yeah, my mic's on. Give me a little gain on my mic. Jesus chose them anyway. This, in many ways, is how we can get some encouragement. None of us have a single qualification for being a disciple of Jesus Christ. But he chose us. He saved us. He sanctified us. He gifted us. And then he commissioned us. Just like the 12, he takes raw materials and he brings them together and adds a willing heart. And out of those qualities, he qualifies that person, molding him into a shape, into a character that he can use. And we've also seen Jesus take those refined, those raw materials, and he purifies them like a silversmith would purify silver. But he doesn't remove all the qualities. Today we're going to look at Nathanael. We're going to take a look at Nathanael, and when we first meet him is like what was read in John chapter 1, 43 through about 46. I almost entitled this sermon, Great Things Come from Strange Places. But I didn't. I chose Something Good Can Come from Nazareth. But to the amazement of Nathanael, who is introduced by the disciple Philip, a question kind of comes up is because how many of you would have noticed that Nathanael was not mentioned among the 12? If you go back and read Matthew chapter 10, verses 1 through 5, you notice that Nathanael's not mentioned. Well, just so you'll have a little bit of conversation here, at the dinner table, you got to understand that some of these disciples had more than one name. Some of them had 3 names, but we're not going to get into that. But Nathanael was also known as Bartholomew. Bart. Now, Bartholomew is, when you hear the word, anytime you hear someone with the name Bar, like Bar Jonah or Barabbas or Bartholomew, you have to understand that means son of. Okay, so he was the son of Ptolemy. Bar is Hebrew for the word son. Tholomew is a Hebrew word for Ptolemy. So hence his name was Bartholomew, or his name could be. He was also called Nathanael, son of Ptolemy. So when we talk about Nathanael, we're talking about Bartholomew, and we're talking about the same person. It is this person who is coming to a realization that some great things can come from strange places, or some good can come out of Nazareth. Now you remember Philip just told his best friend that we found the Messiah, we found the Christ. He is Jesus of Nazareth. He's the son he's the son of what's his name? Yes. Thank you. Y'all can see I'm making sure y'all paying attention. But he's Jesus of Nazareth. So here's Nathanael, and he is hearing all this. Jesus of Nazareth, son of Joseph, from Nazareth, and his first response is kind of strange. His first response, when I read it, he makes a joke. Nazareth? Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Now, I haven't lived here long enough to know where all the, areas are that the areas that people don't like, okay? But I can say this. If I were down in Austin and someone said, he's from Texas A&M, somebody probably would say, well, can anything good come out of Texas A&M? Now, I know different and I know better. We know better. But see, that right there could be the basis of our lesson tonight, the lesson this morning. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? That's kind of a response. It kind of has a little bit of ridicule in it. And so we see that Nathanael, in a lot of ways, displays a certain bit of narrow-mindedness. I mean, can anything really good come out of Nazareth? And so this comment is made and it is recorded for history. Now, why in the world, we talked about being chosen, why in the world would Jesus choose someone who was, in a lot of ways, intolerant against someone simply because of where they came from? No one is for sure what the extent of the antagonizing was. I mean, it could have been contempt for Nazareth. I mean, Nathanael could have just been from the neighboring town. And rivalries were always known to exist between neighboring towns. It could have been that the fact that, well, Nazareth in biblical times was nothing special. It was mediocre. Nothing really happened in Nazareth. Notice that notice good old Philip, he doesn't argue, he doesn't debate, he doesn't do anything to persuade him. He just looks at Bartholomew and says, well, come on. Come and see, he says. Come and find out. Come and see if anything good can come out of Nazareth. Barclay wrote one time, he's a scholar, a theologian. Barclay said, not very many people have ever been argued into Christianity. Often our arguments do more harm than good. The only way to convince a man of the supremacy of Christ is not to confront him, is to confront him with Christ. I almost read that wrong. In other words, don't try to convince people to follow Jesus through a reasoned debate. Don't try to argue people into faith. If you want to get people to follow Christ, you simply show them Christ in your life. If you want people to follow Christ, all you got to do is show them how He's working in yours. Don't argue. Don't try to debate anything. Nathanael, to his credit, doesn't allow his prejudice to cloud his vision. And so he goes to see Jesus. And why would Nathanael, not have this lot with Nazareth? Well, part of it is then because I knew, part of it was because Nathanael was a pretty smart fella. Nathanael studied his Bible. Nathanael knew that in the Old Testament there is not one mention of the word Nazareth when it comes to talking about the Messiah and where he would come from. Yes, the Messiah was born in Bethlehem in Judah, not to come from the town, and he doesn't, according to the prophecies, he doesn't come from some podunk town like Nazareth. There are many statements throughout history by so-called experts over the years. Many people who have studied and know things, and they've made profound statements. I found a couple of them. I can share them with you. Oh, I got to that. Ken Olson, president and chairman and founder of Digital Equipment Corp., said back in 1977, there is no reason anyone would want a computer in their home. How about this one? The president of Decca Records, rejecting the Beatles, said, "We don't like their sound, and guitar music is on its way out anyway." Jimmy Dean, manager of the Grand Ole Opry, who one of our members has gone there to be there, except when he fired Elvis from the Grand Ole Opry, said, "You ain't going nowhere, son. You got to go back to driving a truck." Now, imagine what might have happened if Elvis actually listened to him. And then Mary Somerville, a pioneer of radio educational broadcasting, said in 1948, "Television won't last. It's a flash in the pan." Trice Speaker, a baseball expert, talking about Babe Ruth, taking the best left-handed pitcher in baseball and converting him to a right fielder is one of the dumbest things I ever heard. Babe Ruth. And then Rutherford B. Hayes, about Bell's telephone in 1872. "It's a great invention, but who would want to use it anyway?" Ask my daughter who wants to use the phone. She's not here, I can say that now. One of the best ones I thought was IBM, the company Xerox, who makes copiers, was once quoted as saying in 1959 that the world's potential market for copy machines is about 5,000 at the most. Every place has got a copy machine now. All these quotes. Nazareth. Can anything good come from there? You see, Nathanael asked, and why would he say such a thing? Well, it's not a very big town. No prophecies. Nothing like that. There are over 456 Old Testament prophecies, and what's amazing is that he knows a few of them. And he quickly discerns that the Messiah has nothing to do with Nazareth. Philip said Nazareth, and in Nathanael's mind, he's thinking there's no connection. How did he know this? Well, he studied his Bible. He studied. The Messiah coming was a very hot topic back then. In fact, the Messiah coming back is a hot topic now. People love to study about it. If that's true today, how much more true it would have been when Jesus was first coming? Oh man, did people study? Apparently it was, and Nathanael knew that Nazareth and the Messiah had no connection. It's not possible. Did you know that? Did you know that there was no connection between the Messiah and Nazareth? I didn't, until I had to do some research. Nothing special is ever expected to come from Nazareth. Notice what now. Let's change the page here. Notice what happens when Nathanael and Christ meet. I want you to hear the conversation. Then think about the conversation that Jesus has with Nathanael, because this is part of what we can learn from Bartholomew. Notice that Jesus says when Philip brings Bartholomew to him, he says, "Here is a true Israelite in whom there is nothing false." Nathanael says, "How do you know me?" And Jesus said, before Philip called you, when you were under the fig tree, I saw you. And Nathanael responds, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." And Jesus is amazed at how easily Nathanael believes and accepts him for who he is. He even comments on it. Jesus gives Nathanael one of the greatest compliments a person could give a Jew in that day. Here is a true Israelite in whom there is nothing false. In other words, this guy has no sense of deviousness, deceitfulness, no trickiness. This guy does not have any kind of craftiness or cunningness or slyness or characteristics. Nathanael must have gotten the shock of his life. How in the world could this man say something like that about me? I wonder if he knows what I'm thinking. I wonder if he knows what I just said about him. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? But see, Jesus isn't worried about a statement. Jesus isn't worried about the things that are thought up in the head. Jesus doesn't care where about that. He didn't care about Nazareth as far as what kind of what ranks and classification of towns and cities. And he could care less what Nathanael thought of Nazareth. See, Jesus isn't worried about a few words. Jesus wants to focus on the character of the man. As a true Israelite, Nathanael didn't just read God's word. Nathanael tried to live it, which is a really good trait when you think about it, because there are many of us, there are many, not us, there are many in Israel who were Israelites, if you want to use by this context, by name only. There were many who went to the temple and they offered their sacrifices, but they weren't willing to change their lives. There are many in the Israelite community who would come to the temple and they would worship, but it was a hollow ritual. There are many in the Israelite community who in public were praised and thought it to be great, holy men, but in private they were the most ungodly person you ever come across. See, an Israelite in name only, well, there were many like that. But not Bartholomew, not Nathanael. Here was a man who feared God. Here was a man of integrity. His heart, y'all, his heart gave the testimony to God. And this is why Jesus continues to describe him as someone of whom there is nothing false. You see, falseness brings to mind a picture of deception, a picture of hypocrisy. And Nathanael was neither. Excuse me. Nathanael was a straightforward man. A man that people could respect. Because when you spoke to Nathanael, you knew you were getting the plain truth. Here, Jesus says, is a true Israelite in whom there is nothing false. That is an incredible compliment, especially when it comes out of the mouth of the Son of God. Did you ever think about that? It is also a compliment that challenges us. It is a challenge for us to think about the type of disciple Jesus needs. Jesus needs disciples who are true to their heart. Hypocrites are so easy to spot. So are those who exaggerate the truth. And when we meet such people, we often turn them off, switch them off, or find something else to talk about. But when we find people of integrity, people who are upfront and who are honest and who will always tell you the truth no matter how hard it may hurt or how painful it may be, when we find those kind of people, well, we warm up to them, don't we? We don't ever want to leave. We just want to continue to hang around with them. Well, they warm up to us. And as a disciple of Jesus, we want people to warm up to us. Spreading the gospel, let me tell you something, spreading the gospel or telling the good news or telling people about Jesus and how Jesus worked in our lives, it is hard enough. It is hard enough to do that. Without making people switch off because of our character. So there are people we need to be people of integrity. We need to be Christians who are of honesty. We're true believers in whom there is no falseness. We need to be this kind of person because the gospel we are sharing, well, it contains some pretty incredible claims. And Jesus sees right into the heart of man. And he knew there were none like him. Could that really be true? I mean, as far as humanity wise, is that really possible? Jesus sees Bartholomew, and he's sitting under a fig tree. Now, there's a reference to that about how, Jesus and fig trees. I'm starting to think, and this is a kind of a different thing here, but Jesus looks at the fig tree like he looks at the spirituality of Israel at the time. Anytime Jesus comes in contact with a fig tree, he pays special attention to it. And I think Jesus is trying to make like an object lesson. The fig tree is the equivalent of Israel's spirituality at the time. And so when Jesus curses the fig tree because it doesn't bear fruit, he's not mad at the tree, he's mad at Israel. And so when he sees Bartholomew sitting under a fig tree, he makes sure he notices that. And he makes sure he points out to Nathanael, I saw you sitting under a fig tree. You know, fig trees to Jesus are very important. Now, Nathanael was a man who had a desire to be close, to follow the Lord. Jesus is saying to Nathanael, in essence, I know the real you, Nathanael. Jesus is saying, and as much as I know the real you, knowledge of what happens under a fig tree means Jesus knows that Nathanael's desire and what drives him. Jesus recognizes this about Nathanael, and that's why he is called to be one of the 12. You know, there are a lot of the Bartholomews, the Nathanaels in this world are the ones who want to show us that no matter what kind of raw materials we are made of, it is the calling by Jesus Christ that makes us more than we are and qualifies us to be the servant of the Most High God. One day, I'm sure you will all agree with me, one day I would love to hear Christ say to us, here are some true Christians in whom there is nothing false. Jesus is amazed at how easily Bartholomew believes in him and accepts him for who he is. And he comments on it. And Jesus promises this man a simple, guileless faith. That this man is going to see far more greater, more wonderful things than he is able to perceive. Come and see is the invitation. Nathanael came. Nathanael saw. And most importantly, Nathanael believed. You see, Nathanael was just so amazed at what Jesus has done. And then Jesus does what he normally does. He raises the stakes even more. He says, Nathanael, you think that me seeing you under the fig tree is impressive? Well, brother, you ain't seen nothing yet. You want to see greater things than that. Jesus promises Bartholomew that he's going to witness all kinds of things. And he did. The lepers were cleaned. The blind was healed. The lame walked. The deaf can hear. The dead were brought back to life. A man was killed on a cross and put in an empty tomb and rose from the dead. And then he met Jesus on the beach after he came back. Sin was paid for. Death was conquered. Heaven opened. I'm going to close with this. The wildest thing in the universe is not space. It is the potential ability of the human heart. The human heart is capable of almost unlimited extensions in all directions. And one of the world's greatest tragedies is that we allow our hearts to shrink until there is room for only ourselves. We found the Messiah. He is Jesus Christ. He's the Lord. And yes, he is from Nazareth. And if you don't know anything about him, well, the invitation is just like that of Philip. Come and see. Come and see what Christ has done in our lives. There's not one person in this room who would be not willing to share with you what God has done for them. We're not going to try to argue or debate with you into your faith, Christianity. All we want to do is tell you our story. If we can help you in any way, if we can baptize you, if we can give you prayers of the church, whatever you need, please make it known as we stand and as we sing.